Dave Arnold live from Crandon, presented by eBay Motors. We're here to talk a little bit of the difference between the Pro 4 and the Pro 2. And I got the real expert, Billy Sleeper from Pro Power, who built the power plant on this. Billy, let's talk about this beast. I know it's got a 410 cubic inch motor, but let's talk a little bit about what makes it go around the track.
Well, a lot of these trucks, they're purposely built to be a little bit lighter, and what happens is, in this case, is there's 10 pounds per cubic inch. So whenever they get the truck done, they pretty much order the engine according to how much the truck weighs. So being 4,100 pounds, we build a 410 cubic inch motor. Tends to be a little more acceleration, a little more drivability, and then on track, obviously, it's less mass. So Pro 4s have four-wheel drive, have a 6-speed tranny, so you can keep it in the RPM range. It tends to be up on the pipe, and most of the time, they never have a throttle lag because they can just grab another gear.
Well, let's talk also. These are not full-time four-wheel drives, and I know it's very complicated the way it works to a certain degree, how they engage and how these rotate with the four-wheel drive.
Well, a couple things. There's a couple things that happens in the T-case. A lot of these guys have a X-Track transmission, which has a T-case incorporated in it, and that sends the power forward. So this one in particular actually sends it to a front differential that unlocks and locks, lets it turn it better in the corner on entry. So most of the trucks in a Pro 4 situation tend to be tight, but that helps it loosen up, slide a little more. These guys tend to do more power slides than anybody in motorsports.
Now we're here to talk about the difference. We already talked about the Pro 4. Now it's time for the Pro 2. And Billy, very similar power plant, but a little bit different.
So for a long time it was similar. There was a 900 horsepower on the hood. We could run carburetor, and now they kind of changed it a little bit. They went to injection. They want to do a little bit different packaging. So what happened over time was, because the Pro 2s had the same horsepower, they had no traction. So a lot of the guys were looking for budget changes, how to save some money. So they went with a Pro 2 spec. Came from the Midwest, they called it a Pro 2M. What it did was it limited the cubic inch, so it's 410, which is 4,000 pounds for a truck for a minimum, and a 410 cubic inch motor. Well, that engine actually ends up being a spec. It's an iron block, and it has aluminum head. It makes about 700 horsepower. So in order to get a lot of the old trucks involved, they actually restricted the old open motors and made them the same horsepower, and now they actually race together, fuel injected or carbureted, in the same class, and we have more trucks and more fun racing.
So very similar to what like NASCAR with the restrictor plates that they run there, some of the tracks, and same with the sprint cars.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because a lot of people thought, oh, it's going to slow this horse down, it's going to slow the truck down. And what happened was, with the amount of traction that they gain, they actually end up with very similar times. So we still have some of the great same speed trucks that we had before, roaring down into turn one, just like the old days at Crandon.
Well, we've talked about the Pro 4, the difference to the Pro 2. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Pro Lite. And there's been several changes in the Pro Lite over the years. Originally it started back, it was a 4-cylinder class. Well, then the V8 came into play in the LS platform. And talk a little bit about that and the difference. You know, Billy, you've had a lot of experience and watched the evolution of this class.
Yeah, it's always been that feeder class. You know, it's always been amazing how well the young drivers that blend themselves into a Pro Lite can jump up and really blend right back into a Pro 4 and be really successful. The champions like Johnny Greaves, CJ Greaves, Kyle LeDuc, Marty Hart, you got your Doug Matags, all these guys, or even Kyle LeDuc, all the championships in a Pro Lite went right into Pro 4s. The other cool part is this truck actually has a LS package, and a lot of that, it was all similar with the other trucks that I built the engines. This one is actually an LS platform supplied by Chevy. They're a sealed motor, so I can't do anything about it. But the one thing I would say about the three trucks we just talked about, one guy in particular does all three of them, is Chad Matag. Not only did he spot for them, he built the trucks, he set them up, and he helped these guys be fast time, all three of them. It's pretty cool. First time I've ever known in my history that one guy was involved in all three quick times.
Well, we showed you the difference when you're looking at the Pro 2 and the Pro 4, and we saw the Pro Lite. Now it's time to take a look at the engine packages, and once again we got Billy from Pro Power once again to show us a little the differences. Billy, what do we got going on here?
Well, a couple things happen, you know. Being involved in off-road and being involved in late model racing, we've incorporated some things in off-road back that help us into the late models, and sometimes late models come back to the off-road. The main thing that we've actually developed for the off-road is they make us run a fuel injection program. So in the back there, you see that engine there, that's a fuel injected. So we do the fuel rails, it's not a carburetor anymore, and whereas the late models, it's still a carburetor. Carburetors are 4-barrel. And that always goes on top of the intake manifold, and that's actually just 4 blades in the bottom. That's why they call it 4 blades. If you look at this carburetor right here is called a 4-barrel. Has 4 different blades. Now the fuel injection is a 4-barrel throttle body, so it makes similar power, just a little safer and a little less fires and things like that. That's why they went to it. Now, the other thing that we have is on an off-road truck, we have a pump that is actually mounted, and it's a billet and part of the oil pan. So this pump right here is mounted as part of the pan, has no lines. Whereas a dirt late model, the oil pump would actually be in the rear by the transmission, and the pan is actually a separate piece. So Pro 4 and a Pro 2 has a billet front motor plate that gets mounted here, whereas the late model mounts on the side of the blocks. So a lot of these pieces here are all made from ID Design. Really a badass package. We can actually mount the engine without putting stress in the block.
Well, there it is, a little difference in the power plants in these Pro 4s, Pro 2s, and we even got to see what the late models run there, and I know a lot of you fans out there follow the late model series, so stick around. We'll watch it all live here from Crandon, and it's going to be on speedsport.tv live this Sunday.